Greetings, everyone. This is from This Week in Chicago, where we discuss mostly the Chicago Bears. And for this segment, I'd like to actually go and address the Chicago Bears front office. I want to remind them that they have only two Pro Bowl caliber defensive players, and that is why we as fans would want to see them to trade up to get another defensive game changer. And this is for the week of March 21st, 2025. You'll notice that I always put in the dates on this, and you'll see why. And the reason I put a timestamp is because I can demonstrate that whatever I do end up posting, I don't post much. In fact, I only have one other video shot in 2023. But whenever I post things, especially lots of comments about a specific topic, I'm usually right. For instance, in my first video in 2023, where I discussed which teams have a shot at winning the Super Bowl, I was able to accurately predict that the Packers would not win the Super Bowl. Spoiler alert, they didn't. Also, if you track my comments posted on various YouTube channels, I correctly predicted that the signing of Shane Waldron as the Bears offensive coordinator was going to fail. In fact, I was advocating for the Bears not to sign Shane Waldron. Again, that failed too, but just notice that whatever I'm pointing out generally is correct and is based on facts and logic. And just to give you a quick hint about what I talked about Shane Waldron, the fact is, let me ask you guys this. If Bill Belichick thought that Shane Waldron was a horrible offensive coordinator, why would you even hire him? Similarly, if Sean McVay thought Shane Waldron was a horrible offensive coordinator, why would you even hire him? Again, if Pete Carroll thought that Shane Waldron was a horrible offensive coordinator, why would you hire him? Now, in this scenario, only one of the three statements are true. And in that case, it was Pete Carroll who actually explicitly threw shade on Shane Waldron back when the Seattle played the 49ers and they had a horrible loss. I think it was 49-10. It's back in 2022. And then basically you could tell that there was a loss of confidence. And the fact is, it was intimated that Pete Carroll was not going to hire Shane Waldron back if he was retained in Seattle for that year. So again, like I said, my analysis is based on logic, information, and it's generally accurate when I do make these types of posts. And now, what does history tell us about Super Bowl champions? Going back to my very first video, I pointed out that every Super Bowl winning team had a minimum of 6 Pro Bowl All-Pro players on their team. This is only, of course, recent teams because you can, but it's been shown for the last 20 plus years. Even if you look at this year's staff team with the Eagles, they had 5 players nominated. That did not include Jalen Hurts, who was already like 2 years ago runner-up, I believe, for MVP. Forget All-Pro and Pro Bowl. MVP conversation, and he's probably going to make it next year anyways. And it didn't also include Jaylon Carter, who looks like a beast and should make it next year. And in contrast, let's look at the Bears. They currently have only 4 players: DJ Moore, Joe Thuney, Jaylon Johnson, and Montez Sweat. And just building on this slide, again, you just need, there's a magic formula on guaranteeing your team having a shot to win the Super Bowl. Again, if you need at least a minimum of 6 All-Pro/Pro Bowl players within the current modern era in order to win the Super Bowl. That shouldn't be a surprise. Superstars win championships. You need a lot of them. And if we're going to, furthermore, it's also usually pointed out that a starting quarterback, at least when I started looking at the trend, where you go with Tom Brady, you can go back to Joe Flacco, you can go back to all the other quarterbacks that ended up, even, what is its name? The guy, Patrick Mahomes, etc., Matthew Stafford, you usually have a superstar quarterback. That's just a general trend. So in the topic of Caleb Williams, I actually believe he will develop into that fifth All-Pro Pro Bowl player. Remember, he had no coaching, he had lousy coaching. Obviously, near the end, where what's his name, Thomas Griffin, the offensive coordinator, was clearly being overwhelmed. When he was promoted to being head coach, the Bears were a disaster. No culture, nothing else. They were a train wreck near the end. Somehow, Caleb still had a lot of yards, over 3,000 passing yards, I believe. He did really well. And when you consider that the offensive line was mediocre to begin with, and it's just with injuries, they just looked even far worse. There was no offensive line by the end. So, I mean, the fact that he actually managed to produce something in there is amazing. And honestly, people keep talking about Jaden Daniels, etc. I guarantee you he would have the same problems, if not more. I mean, the Bears really weren't going to do much better with either of them because of that offensive line at the end with all the injuries. So the best bet for the Bears to have a shot at winning the Super Bowl is by getting a sixth game changer, basically, and that would be on the defensive end. You only have, again, just two Pro Bowl players, and Montez Sweat did not have a good year last year. So, I mean, question it goes: is he a really good player, or is he a Pro Bowl all elite, all Pro player? That still has yet to be determined, basically. So you really do need to build up the defense because you only have one surefire Pro Bowl All Pro candidate there, player there, and that's Jaylon Johnson. Therefore, what can the Bears do to get to the game changer on defense that they so desperately need? And the answer is quite simple. You need to trade up. This is where the extra second round draft pick is good for, to grab game changers such as Mason Graham and Abdul Carter. I mean, like I said, you might be able to package your first and your 2 seconds for Abdul Carter. Maybe they will, maybe they wouldn't. Uh, but it's worth a shot. And honestly, like I said, you can build for the future. You could, or you could actually invest right now in the future of one single player, and that's Caleb Williams, and getting him the great defensive player he needs. Remember what the Arizona Cardinals did, actually? That was still a great draft where they ended up getting their quarterback and also their defensive player as well, all in one draft. The Houston Texans, sorry, CJ Stroud, etc. So the Bears certainly could get that player in the draft as well. Even if they couldn't get Abdul Carter, at least they have more than enough trade material to at least make an offer to get Mason Graham. Now, again, like I said, we don't know what the Bears front office is doing, but hopefully that they're looking into that because that is the best way to win. Like I said, your team needs superstars to win, and you only have two superstars on defense. One of them didn't look as great last year. You really need that second superstar on defense. You actually need that third one. Let's say Montez will bounce back. So now you'll have, and hopefully with this draft pick of either Mason Graham or Abdul Carter, you can get that final third game changer. So what can we do as Bear fans? We can speak up and post comments about how the Bears need to get a defensive game changer through trading up in the draft on other media and platforms. I've seen other things. I love hearing that. I think Sean Sports Talk Bears or something was talking about hopefully the player falling to number 10, but that's not realistic. I don't even. I love his analysis, but just the fact that they think that Mason Carter is going to fall to 10 or even try to dream of it, just not happening. They really need to trade up. So I will give credit to Kevin Fishbane, who also thought the same way I did. I saw his thing last week where he mentioned the possibility of trading up because that's exactly what I want to see the Bears happening. It's too bad that no one else is really talking about that, and I feel like to support him, like he did a great interview, Kevin Fishbane of the Athletics, with I think it was CHGO podcast, and he literally was talking about trading up. They were shooting it down as usual on there, or saying blah blah blah. The fact is, the Bears need that game changer on defense, and the only way they're going to get that at this point is either trade up in the draft, and that is my preferable option. Maybe they can give, and maybe if Trey Henderson situation in Cincinnati gets so unattainable that the Bears only have to give up a 3rd-round pick and maybe Dayo, maybe. I guess you'd have to send back someone, obviously, to make it fit under the salary cap. So it's funny that we just signed Dayo. We just sent him back along with the 3rd-round pick. That way we'd be able to sign Trey Henderson. I'd be for that too as well. And always, please like, comment, and subscribe to this video so that more people can actually see it. YouTube has an algorithm, so if people like it, subscribe, comment on this, showing support for this video, basically then it gets viewed by more people, and hopefully we can get enough Bears fans to actually start clamoring for this as well, and make the front office aware of what we think would be the best possible chance for the Bears to win the Super Bowl. At the very end, I mean, it's great that Ryan Poles is now relying on apparently Ben Johnson for more advice, but still, it just sometimes, the masses are right. We may not have a football degree. We may not have any experience playing football at the professional or collegiate level, but we see things that go necessarily outside of football, such as looking at the stats and seeing how many game changers are needed on a team to win a Super Bowl. And as long as we get that point across, hopefully the front office gets that message as well. Again, this is Professor Matt. Thank you for your time, and I'm signing out.